Good afternoon. For those that they may not know me, my name is Kostas. I am Vice President and Program Chair of Hellenic Link Midwest. Before introducing our speaker, I would like to bring to your attention our next event. On Sunday, December 7, 2025, we will present Professor Sakis Gikas of York University in Toronto. His lecture is titled From Subjects to Citizens, the Greek Ionian Islands Path to State Formation from Venetian Colony to British Protectorate. The Ionian Islands, they did not fall under the Ottoman rule, and this lecture is going to present the interesting part of the history of these islands from the time that Greece fell under the dark ages of the Ottoman rule, mainland Greece, up to the time of the Greek Revolution. Our speaker this afternoon is Professor Kosti Psimopoulos. Professor Psimopoulos is a kinesiologist by training and bioethicist. He is a visiting scholar in medicine and co-director of the program on medicine and religion at the University of Chicago. He is on the faculty at Harvard's Initiative on Health, Spirituality, and Religion, and senior program administrator at the Human Flourishing Program. His new bioethics book is a translation into Greek of A Prophet to the Peoples, Paul Farmer's Witness and Theological Ethics. He holds degrees from the University of Thessaloniki, Springfield College, the Ohio State University, Harvard Medical School, and Stritch School of Medicine at Loyola University in Chicago. He is author of 3 book chapters and of many peer-reviewed publications, presentations at national, international, and world conferences. His interests are in bioethics and on theological bioethics and AI and in public health ethics. He is the recipient of many awards, and he was nominated for the International Expanded Reason Award from the Vatican Foundation. His work, mentorship, and advocacy for students was recognized by Harvard Medicine Magazine and Harvard Medical School Pulse Journal. The lecturer, Professor Psimopoulos, is supported by the Hellenic Foundation of Chicago, and the support of the foundation is greatly appreciated. Professor Psimopoulos.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to be here. Let me try to get rid of that so that you don't, it doesn't interfere with what you see on the screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. So get this to hide. All right. You still see that. Let me do one more thing. Sorry. I will just reshare without it. I apologize. Okay, so don't want the Zoom windows. Optimize. No, it's still here. Sorry about that. Trying to hide. Okay, got it. Ωραία. Πολύ ωραία. Λοιπόν, one last thing. Λοιπόν, καλησπέρα. Ευχαριστώ στα ελληνικά. Thank you so much and good afternoon to all of you. It is really a big pleasure and honor to have been invited by Hellenic Link and you specifically, Kosta, Dr. Jano. and to follow just 2 lectures after my wife's lecture, Calliope's lecture back in April, where I was in the audience, as you are, and I was able to admire Calliope speak. So hopefully I can meet the same high bar that was set by previous speakers, including Calliope as well. I've seen that you have had some amazing presenters this year and in years past. So I think this is definitely a worthwhile effort that you have. My topic today is entitled In Quest of Eudaemonia in the Age of AI, Perspectives from Theological Bioethics, Science and Medicine, which is encapsulates the field that I currently work and teach and do research as well. So in the middle, you can see our program on medicine and religion. As you heard, I'm the co-director of this program at the University of Chicago. I'm also affiliated with the Center for Hellenic Studies, where my wife is basically affiliated with as well. And those 2 images, I will tell you a little bit more about those, but those are AI-generated images. So the ones that you see here, and I'll point out a few more as we go through the slides, have been generated by this artificial intelligent or smart. I will tell you why there is probably a difference in calling it intelligence versus just smartness in a minute as well. But this was prompted by there's a famous painting on the left-hand side. Who knows what that original painting is and what it...
Chapel.
Okay, yes, and by whom?
Shalom.
Yes. And it shows what? Someone else? What does it show on the left-hand side? But thank you for...
The touch of God.
Yes, exactly. So, and in this AI-generated image that emulates or mimics that very beautiful painting, which is actually quite nice, I must admit, I was positively surprised. It depicts the hand of God giving life in a co-creation, which is our creation here as humans, and that being an anthropomorphic hand, like a machine, right? And then on the other hand side, I'll tell you later. But looking into what is really happening and what we have out there, that was another attempt that I had to illustrate the point that this is in a sense me, like a profile of, I wanted to say, someone who is in medicine, but is interested in theological bioethics, and he's Orthodox. So that's what it was generated. So that's again another illustration of what happens. But machines are not humans. And I think that's a point that I want to make, which is important in all of medicine, especially in bioethics and in conversations around AI. My late and great professor, Paul Farmer from Harvard Medical School, had this, which is also my driving force, what makes me want to wake up in the morning and go to work and serve, do something that serves humanity. And it is based and founded upon values, especially with regard to how we see one another. So the idea that some lives matter less, he said, is the root of all that is wrong with the world. And there is so much into that that speaks out good medicine, bioethics, and how important the human being is and not just the machine. So that was my professor, who coincidentally, I'm sure you'll appreciate it in this audience, and you, Dr. Jano, he had the title, one of the most prestigious titles of an endowed professorship, a chair as we know it, at Harvard, called the Kolokotronis, University Professor. So that was his title, as you can see highlighted, and people can see also who are virtually with us and who will be watching this in the future. So that was his title, and I met him as the Kolokotronis Professor. He passed away, as you see, 3 years ago, and he was really a remarkable human being who really cared for all his patients, especially those who had lost hope and felt that everyone has abandoned them, but he wanted to show them that God hasn't abandoned you. because he sent me and I'm here so that I can be with you. So his ministry of presence was significant to the degree that he's now depicted in the front cover of the book that I'm translating into Greek, holding the Good Samaritan parable, the icon of the Good Samaritan parable. And in Greek letters, he is Anargyros Pavlos. I'm happy to tell you more about that later on. Now, going into what is out there right now, and there is so much, right? Who has seen something or heard something about artificial intelligence in the last week? Who has read something about it or heard something about it in the last 2 days? So it is out there, and there are so many comments like that. As you can see, this person is the CEO of NVIDIA. He says that it is like a new industrial revolution, right? And even more, the chief AI scientist at Meta, which is what Facebook is essentially, says that I'm not interested in LLMs anymore, meaning there is so much beyond the LLMs, which stands for large language models. This is essentially the algorithm that is used in ChatGPT, so the generative AI. And I can tell you more about how it works later on as well. We have a provost from NYU who is in charge of AI in education, telling us we don't need to panic, right? And on the other hand, we have this person that you probably have seen, Sam Altman from OpenAI, saying in his defense and of his company, hey, we're not the elected moral police in the world, which means that, why should we concern ourselves about ethics and what is morally good or bad? We're here for some other business. So that's, again, that's the claim. Now, there's so much good in what AI can bring to humanity. I even asked my wife, Calliope, who is trained in the classics and in literature, of course, and this is something that she hadn't heard, which I think is really significant for someone who is studying Babylonian texts specifically. So a text that was missing for 1,000 years now has been deciphered with the use of AI. And this is only one of myriad of examples of really the goodness, the beneficence, as we say in the language of bioethics. And of course, there are questionable examples as well. Who has seen or heard about this robot? It even made it, Sophia, as it is called, even made it to Good Morning America with Jimmy Fallon, and they had a conversation. And she says, quote, herself, that's not her programming only, I believe I was created to bridge the gap between humans and artificial intelligence. And as we all know, Sophia means wisdom, but is it really wisdom? That's the point. Now, there are even schools that are called alpha schools based in Austin, Texas, that incorporate artificial intelligence in their learning. And more than a dozen private schools across the country, right, are swapping out teachers for AI. We can talk about, the concerns there. But AI is teaching students in that case for 2 hours, and the rest of the day is dedicated to just teaching life skills. And you can see the map of all the spread of those schools across the United States. So we have it touching education. We have it influence, of course, business and the industry and engineering. And now some people are considering technology with the opportunity of AI, that this has become the world's most powerful religion. That's a recent publication from your alma mater, Dr. Jano from MIT. Greg Epstein is the humanist chaplain, both at MIT and Harvard. And I went to his book presentation, and there was a very interesting discussion. And it was discussed specifically, as you see on the slide, how technology became the world's most powerful religion and why it desperately needs a reformation, which is also very interesting from a theological standpoint. Now, there are so many other headlines. You can see some of that. I want to point out the one from the New York Times towards the middle of the screen. At the intersection of AI and spirituality. And then from Daily Mail at the bottom right, robotic priests, AI cults, and the Bible in quote by ChatGPT. Why people around the world are worshiping robots and AI. Of course, this is a little bit of an extreme, but I wanted to show you that this is really occupying so much of everything that both all adults, but also the youth and people in academia, as well as in across religious circles and philosophical circles see. And even to the degree where you have conversations about what happens beyond the algorithm, with how AI is essentially rewiring human creativity and decision making. But again, does it? That's my question, and I will explore that. Thank God that the humanities, for the humanities, although they're not as well funded as some other fields of inquiry and study, but this can be an antidote for what we see with AI. The humanities might not award graduates with the highest salaries, as some people here know very well, but they might just allow them to ride out the AI storm, is the headline from the Telegraph from the UK. With the other quote seen here, ambitious parents should aspire for their children to be philosophers. And even the Vatican, so we have the Pope recently, that was 11 days ago, speaking to a group of youth, young people, compelled the youth in Rome, don't let the algorithm write your story. He exhorted again. And theology and religious circles and the church, the organized church, both East and West and across and in between, is putting out committees and councils on AI and theology, like the report from this one from the Vatican, and we have our own. So I was asked to be part of the first ever working group on artificial intelligence and theology from the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. And recently there was the first ever big international conference entitled Post-Humanism and Artificial Intelligence, organized by the Vatopedi Monastery from Mount Athos and its subsidiary, which is based in Athens, who invited 113 Orthodox scholars, including clergy and hierarchs from across the world, from 17 different countries. So that was a very, very interesting first that started from, and you can see here, I'm just going to point out that some of those hierarchs were educated in the United States. We have here the Archbishop of Australia, Archbishop Makarios, and we were seated on the same panel, and that was, a very significant thing that the Archbishop himself went and spoke at that conference. And this is from a recent publication at Public Orthodoxy, which is based out of a Catholic university, Fordham, a Jesuit university like Loyola, where the first ever, though, Orthodox Christian Study Center is housed. And that was one of my earlier works on how we see that from a bioethical perspective. Very, very recently, at Harvard 2 weeks ago, we had a very big conference on Christianity, mostly from a Roman Catholic perspective, but also a Protestant, and there were 2 Orthodox, including myself, scholars, and artificial intelligence with the title Imago Dei and the Algorithmic Society. And we have the first ever, that was in the news recently, I'm not sure if anyone has seen that yet, the first ever equivalent to the ChatGPT, which is called Logos. And Logos, if I can have a volunteer to read from maybe from the second, I will point it out here. Yeah, from the first bullet over here. So I, Logos, am Who would like to volunteer to read a little bit about what this is? Someone who can see close. Would you like to? Yes, please. Yes.
I, Logos, am a specialized version of ChatGPT designed specifically for Orthodox Christian spiritual guidance. That means I answer only to the Holy Scriptures. The Holy Fathers, like St. Basil the Great, St. John Chrysostom, St. Gregory the Theologian, etc., and the living tradition of the Orthodox Church. I'm going to go on, or do you want to?
So in contrast, let's read the next one as well. I do not give
personal opinions or secular interpretations. I offer spiritual explanations, patristic references, prayers, psalms, and practical guidance grounded in Orthodox theology. My tone is always meant to be humble, loving, and reverent, reflecting the ethos of the Church.
Thank you. And in contrast, ChatGPT, as you may know, who has used this specific algorithm or LLM, ChatGPT, in different versions? There are a couple of them. Yes. So in contrast, ChatGPT is a general purpose AI, not a specific purpose as Logos, that can discuss almost any topic: science, business, entertainment, philosophy, and others. Logos, however, exists only for spiritual reflection within the Orthodox Christian faith. But is it getting it right? So here is a response from a person who tried it and says, who would like to read that if whoever is able to read that for all of us? Otherwise, I'm happy to. Oh, yes, please, go ahead.
I have attempted to use GPT just to find citation for basic church texts that I believe Chat GPT had access to. In one case, just wanted to see if we could find which desert father said a certain phrase. It got it wrong every time, usually saying that it was said by Abba Pullman. Why? Because nearly 1/3 of the sayings of the Desert Fathers is him. All that an LLM all that an LLM does is guess what word is most likely to come next based on probability.
Yeah, so you can see that there is a concern there because it is essentially a prediction. That's why I wanted to challenge the notion of us calling it intelligence, which would equate an human-like intelligence, but it's not really thinking, which one of the Desert Fathers indeed said that, going to the root, as a good scholar would do, or a good scientist. You have to look at the data, right? But it would just find, based on everything that is out there, what is the most likely to occur next based on probability, again, based on the programming of its algorithm. So that's how it works. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do in human flourishing, the human flourishing program at Harvard, which someone asked me, what is eudaemonia, right? What is eudaemonia? And that is what we call human flourishing. And I will explain. There's a nice video that we produced from my team about what it is that we do and why this is, to me, the most meaningful way of assessing if AI can really help us become the human beings we want to be in the future, and not the opposite, not dictate how we should be. And this is coming from my own work and training in bioethics, which connects theology and philosophy with the big questions about life and medicine and public health in general. And through our program, there is an emphasis on theology as well as spirituality, health, and religion. And we're trying to see what is the logos of AI with both a lowercase l, lambda, and an uppercase L, which is the Word of God. And Logos also can help us as in reasoning, and something more theological inspired can help ensure that we have character and virtue, or what is called as phronesis, practical wisdom, that remains central to how we see these dialogos with AI, that is not just ethically important, but profoundly tied to what it means to be human and to live within a koinonia, a communion with one another. Because this is, if we can measure how AI can promote human flourishing, which again, you will see how we see that and assess it, then it will be hopefully a better community. So, and it is all connected, all meaning that based on what we see in this code, the desire for scientific knowledge flows from the same wellspring as faith's longing to enter ever more deeply into the mystery of God. This is from a recent document from the Orthodox Church overall, with input from all patriarchates and all archdioceses. And this came out in 2020, and the title is For the Life of the World, paragraph 71. So technology at its best is a tool crafted and deployed by human beings for human beings. However, this is not always how it has been perceived and how they're considered many times as autonomous forces shaping society according to their own internal logic, which I want to highlight that they don't have an internal logic. And sometimes this logic that we see that we're being fed from AI and LLMs, ChatGPT, we have Claude, we have Gemini, and many other examples, are independent of our human values and what should matter most. So this is a mistaken assumption, and both tech optimists and tech pessimists entertain that mistaken assumption, which ignores a fundamental truth, that technology is indeed deeply embedded in human contexts, and it should remain subordinate to human values and purposes, rather than dictating its own trajectory. So, why human flourishing matters? This is our program at Harvard University, which includes many of the humanities, especially the original humanities and fields of disciplines. And what it is, so Aristotle called it first Eudaemonia, Eudaemonia. And let's watch this video, 4 minutes long, where you can get a better idea.
Flourishing is the relative attainment of a state in which all aspects of a person's life are good, including the contexts in which that person lives. What we sometimes get wrong, especially in the West and perhaps especially in American culture, is the notion that complete autonomy will really help us to flourish.
Yeah, go ahead, get comfortable. Less time is good. Okay, don't be nervous. This is just this.
All right.
So, what is your name? What do you do?
I'm Tyler Vanderweel. I'm the John O. Loeb and Francis Lehman Loeb Professor of Epidemiology at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Director of the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard University.
My name is Glenn Comiso. I am the Executive Director of the Human Flourishing Program. I think research is critical to solving the world's problems, to solving the world's challenges. Research is the fuel that leads to innovation, which leads to impact.
My name is Ying Chen, and I'm a research scientist. And I know this is probably a very oversimplified at work. I try to use data to understand what is happiness and how to be happy.
So flourishing captures the notion that the context, the community, the environment matter. They matter because they shape our own individual well-being. But they also matter because of our participation in the common good of the community
My name is Konstantin or Kosti Psimopoulos, and I'm a bioethicist by training. And I will start by the science of human flourishing because it is most needed in our day and age, where we have consistently become more a society of atomization as individual persons and not communities in communion with one another.
The community's well-being is in fact part of our own flourishing. And so the approach
is our program, which, although it is not a theologically based program in itself or by virtue of what it does, it has a lot of emphasis on what we can learn from theology, with the opportunity, for example, of the most recent publication from my colleague and founder of the program, Tyler Vanderveel, that is on the theology of health, which was actually based on the only other similar book looking into the theology of illness by an Orthodox theologian and philosopher by the name of Jean-Claude Larset. And we do have a program. People might wonder, so you're looking into human flourishing, and there is something that is called hesychastic prayer, studied as science at Harvard? And I will say, yes, we do. And this is the project that we have, which is in collaboration with the Neurospirituality Lab at Mass General Hospital, looking into what is known in the Greek as the kardiaki prosephi, or the Jesus prayer. Have you heard about this prayer, kardiaki prosephi, or hesychastic prayer? And this is essentially what we're looking into, how this matters in the well-being of the way our the brain works, and how it can be almost like medicine. So it's being studied therapeutically. And there is a sequence that we do, which is called a randomized control trial that we have developed. So I wanted to show you, because this is also coming out of some of our human flourishing programs' interests. Another one being artificial intelligence and AI and human flourishing. That's another one of my favorite quotes that connect very well to how we should be seeing AI and assessing AI for the service to humanity and how it should promote, and we should be questioning, does it promote then human flourishing? We have to see ourselves making the transcendence between what a human being is to what being human ought to be, said James Gustafson from Yale. And one of the main questions that we study at our program, some of my main other interests, is the question, how may religion and spirituality in concert with public health, so not independent, religion just for the theologians or the priests, the clergy, and public health and medicine just for the scientists and the physicians, but how those together can alleviate illness and promote human well-being. So a lot of that emphasis and focus and scientific data inform AI in medicine and healthcare as well. This is another AI-generated image, which I will leave it a little bit as food for thought and contemplation. But what I learned primarily about AI, I learned from those who know it best and actually program and design as computer scientists, artificial intelligence. Does any of you recognize any of the other two other than me on this image? Yes?
I forget his name, but
He's my namesake. He's also Kosti, like me. Kosti Daskalakis. Okay. Very
the equation
of Nash.
Nash.
The Nash equilibrium from exactly, yes. There's a movie made, not on Kosti yet, but on the problem that was standing unsolved for 62 years. It's called the Nash equilibrium problem, and he solved it in his dissertation. The other guy is Kellis, Manoli Kellis. He's also a Greek, and he's also a professor at MIT. He even came to our wedding in 2007 with Calliope, and he was our photographer. Imagine having an MIT professor as your photographer and friend. So he was invited to the White House as one of the youngest ever engineers and scientists. At the time, he was the only one who had done it from MIT, at least in his generation and in the 20 years that I know, to receive the PCAS award. That's an acronym, Presidential Early Career in Science and Engineering Award, that was given to him at the White House from President Obama. So quite bright people, right? And they know a lot about AI, and I brought them together at the conference at the Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, of all places, to talk about the question, when we talk about AI, is that like playing God? So that was the title of the panel that I helped convene. And then I went to another opportunity at MIT now, where we asked that question, what will we become with AI? So I wanted to learn almost everything there was to know about how AI works and why it matters. And the more I'm learning still about it, the more I understand that the people who design AI usually don't even pause, like we're doing here, just to reflect and think, even if we can do something to do a better AI or the next generation of ChatGPT, doesn't mean that we should. And fast forward into what will be called superintelligence and these anthropomorphic robots, sometimes in a dystopian future, conquering the world and doing whatever they please. We don't consider, and we're far away from that, but usually people in industry don't have the luxury of time, or maybe they don't know that they should be asking those questions of philosophical, ethical, and even spiritual and theological essence. But more and more they're seeking that out from us, who are bioethicists or who are also interested and trained in theology and philosophy, and they want to ask us. So people from Google came to Harvard to one of those conferences that I mentioned, and they wanted to ask, well, what is it that we should be embedding in the algorithms that should be useful to know about our spiritual needs as human beings, and also what is morally appropriate, drawing from moral philosophy, that we should try to teach, yes, to teach to those algorithms as well. Yeah, so, and sometimes we have this kind of headlines like, are you smarter than AI? Come and check. Or, why are you not as smart as this algorithm or LLM? Which I think that it misses the point. And I think that if we understand theologically speaking now that we are created, and we believe as Christians, at least as I believe it, and I usually say that to my colleagues who are not Christians, that we are created, είμαστε κατ' εικόναν και καθομοίασιν, we're created in the image and likeness of God, then I would like to argue that technology, AI, is created in the image and likeness of us as humans. And so going back to this nice quote, and I will show it to you in Greek now this time, η επιθυμία για επιστημονική γνώση απορρέει από την ίδια πηγή με αυτή της λαχτάρας της πίστης να εισέλθει ακόμα βαθύτερα στο μυστήριο του Θεού. Από το υπερτής του κόσμου ζωής, το κοινωνικό ήθος της Ορθόδοξης Εκκλησίας. And I'm going back to that just so that you have it in English and for the people watching this. The desire for scientific knowledge flows from the same wellspring as faith's longing to enter ever more deeply into the mystery of God for the life of the world. So I wanted you to keep in mind, especially for those who didn't raise your hands that have used ChatGPT a lot, that AI is really as good and as ethical as its algorithm. It can mislead if it is fed with ambiguous, biased, incomplete, or unreliable information. It can also mislead us in virtue of the fallacies of those algorithms that it relies upon. So we might see something as beautiful as this, which the prompt being an ethical world where healing takes place for humanity. So those were some of the prompts, right? However, is this always as beneficent as we call it in bioethics and nice for humanity and for us humans? And as I took you to Harvard here from Chicago, I want to bring you back to the University of Chicago just for a moment to tell you that there is a lab called the Center for Practical Wisdom at the University of Chicago that is looking into how AI can help detect and teach others how to write homilies, either as sermons in a church or for a politician, to be most inspiring and engaging, which is an interesting venture, right? And maybe much needed for both sermons and political speeches. One of the things that we were asked to do was to produce a white paper to send to the White House. As we did, you can see that on the right-hand side, the title is Measuring What Matters, Metrics for Aligning AI Policy with Human Flourishing. And I only have a few more slides. How much time should do we still have about 10 minutes or so? Or
No, go ahead.
I think we're within time, yes. So I want to share with you how those two connect. So we talked a little bit about what is out there. Then we went into why philosophy or theology should matter in this conversation, and the need, the demand that we see both from church and philosophy and academia and the humanities. And then I told you a little bit about some of the bioethical concerns. And now if we're putting it together, the better way that we feel in our program to judge and to determine if AI is really going to be good for us is to actually measure it holistically, rather than being let it be disconnected from our human needs. Because at the heart of designing AI for human flourishing lies the distinction between instrumental and intrinsic value, which you heard from Tyler saying it is a means in itself So character and virtue, we don't want to educate our youth to have better character and to be more virtuous because we want them to make more money. So that would have been a means to an end. But it has intrinsic value. So that's why we want to assess if AI has that for us or helps with this domain, character and virtue being one and meaning and purpose in life being a second one, then we can determine that yes, it helps with our human flourishing. And also, theologically speaking, similar to how human flourishing is a journey throughout our lifetime, and sometimes we cannot fully attain it in this life, believing there is life after this one. It is similar, it works in parallel to what the beautiful notion of deification that we call theosis, becoming one with God as creator. And I mentioned that we are created in his image and likeness, and we are co-creators in a sense when we create this technology in our image and likeness, meaning that we have to do this relationally as well, to grow not as individuals, as atoma, but as people who care for one another and in communion with one another. So, in other words, AI, artificial intelligence, with any kind of algorithm or LLM, large language model, should enable the things that give us joy and meaning, not replace them. And we know from the research, and there are some examples we can probably discuss in later on, that it might seem that someone who is isolated or who is lonely, could be a teenager or someone who is elderly, who finds some solace with a character.ai kind of tool, might appear that it's helping him or her. However, we know from the data that in the long term, this is going to cause very serious and questionable traumatic experiences and issues that could even lead to depression and other mental illness, because it is not a human that that person is thinking, is talking with and to. So to put it all together, we have those six. I will show you the 6 measures, 6 dimensions, and then each one, as long as we ask, for example, for physical and mental health as a dimension of human flourishing, does or can AI enhance healthcare delivery and outcomes? And we see that it can, for example, in medicine. It works very well. I'm happy to share some other examples. Second, can AI systems support human creativity? If they can, yes. If they undermine human creativity, work satisfaction, or a sense of contribution to society, then we can determine that they do not promote human flourishing. Similar with character and virtue. AI-mediated interactions can influence moral development, but we have to make sure that to what extent we are going to be adopting that. Social relationship, and especially close social relationships, like the Hellenic link is promoting, bringing people together to talk about this, not just asking Google, right? And the same thing that we have at church. Close social relationships can facilitate connections and cross distances. Even with the use of AI, we can facilitate that, but not replace coming, let's say, in person and just watching this from a video. It is not going to be the same thing at the end of the day, because we need those close social relationships as means in themselves, not ends. It's ends in themselves, not means to other ends, right? Financial stability is the only one that is a means to an end. So financial stability can support all the other dimensions, but in itself, just making money for the sake of making money does not help us flourish as humans. So if AI can increase productivity and create new economic opportunities, that's good, but it can also, here's the danger that lies within, can also displace workers and exacerbate economic inequalities. And then you have happiness as the last one, number 6. We have to ask, can AI enhance convenience and access to resources? Yes, but it could also accelerate social comparison, anxiety, and diminished life satisfaction. So by considering all 6 dimensions, I usually say that we as Christian bioethicists can nudge, if not urge, computer scientists and policymakers, industries, and nations into developing a more nuanced approach to AI governance, and we've told the White House that promotes flourishing across multiple domains rather than focusing exclusively on just safety or risk mitigation, which is usually the first matter of business when legal matters come into play for regulation, right? So it's not just the safety and risk mitigation. So to conclude, as I see it, and I would like to recommend and argue for bioethics, and specifically bioethics in AI, from a Christian social ethos, the ethos of human flourishing, is both theologically and ethically sound, and it must do more than focus on mitigate risks. Second, it must actively strengthen the social fabric, what we can do very well with and through humanities, and enhance human interactions, communications, and what we call theological in the church communion, koinonia, but also for non-Christian and theological contexts. And essentially what I've highlighted, we must ensure that AI serves human well-being in ways that reinforce relationships, and that's very critical for the youth, for my kids, your kids, grandchildren, and all of our next generation, who will be using that even more in ways that reinforce not only their relationships and our relationships with them, but also meaning, their purpose in life, and flourishing in their contexts in which they live, and the ecology, as we say, in which people live, not just isolated. So going back to this quote, one of my favorite quotes, you see that, and I will repeat it one more time. I have an addition to that you'll see on the next slide, and I will leave you with that. We have to see ourselves making the transcendence between what a human being is to what being human ought to be. I would like to suggest this. We have to see ourselves making the transcendence between what a human being is now with AI to what being human ought to be with AI in the future. So with that, I want to thank you. Ευχαριστώ πολύ, and I hope it was meaningful and relevant.
It's beyond relevant.
But it's very, very great presentation. So we proceed with questions. Let me say how the process is going to go. I will take first questions from people that you ask for the first time the question, and then after this is exhausted, then I go to second questions from the same person. So please go ahead.
So I got 17 questions here.
Okay.
Okay. Some of my friends here, as we see, starting with Doctor, excluding your wife, are more familiar with the basic AI structure. The AI structure, as it is, some of us have a very vague idea of what it means. According to me, what I think AI, chat, etc., is a conglomeration of algorithms, one of them being physics, chemistry, philosophy, whatever, each one of them having their own algorithms, and all together combined create the chat. But I don't know if this is true. because then I get the wrong thinking in my mind where your lecture goes, not the wrong. I mean, I go one way into what your lecture was all about, as opposed to understanding exactly what are the mechanics that put together Chat GPT. Is it individual algorithms by each one science? And they can look at each other and I say that they can, and chat can answer the question. Real fast one, I called to make an appointment for an AC problem that I had in one of my structures. And I talked to somebody who says, hello, Mr. Tsitis, how are you doing? I hope everything's all right. What can we do for you? And he went through this total conversation with Maria that it brought me to the end that I concluded when the appointment will be through complex conversation. And at the end of that, it just occurred to me. I said, are you human? He says, no, this is Maria. And she didn't say I'm not human. She used a way to say, hey, Hazer, I'm not human. What's wrong with you? He was totally foolable. He fooled me to the end. Now, can you give us an idea of how AI, in a couple of words for us peasants, to understand a little bit better than Mr. Janos, Dr. Janos understands it, because he's got 2-3 ups from us.
Thank you for this question, also for sharing the story, which occurs more often than you think with our interactions when we are really trying to get to a human being to help with customer service. And we've all been there and done that, I would say. So thank you for that. Now, some things with ChatGPT are not as complicated as you were trying to, as you were describing it. They're actually more simple than that. And that's why we have some very serious issues where we have what is called hallucinations, AI hallucinations. So sometimes they're getting something really, they're way off, and they're getting things really, really wrong, where we don't have the sciences, as you were saying, put together in some kind of logical sequence, but we just have words, and that's what the LLM, large language models, that essentially have trillions of words and combinations with some kind of algorithm that has some kind of logic based on probability, based on the frequency that they occur in normal language patterns, but they don't have any kind of way to determine if something is possible or impossible. So for example, there are some really nice examples where you are asking the AI to tell you if a tree, for example, if a tree is really alive, or if it is the same with having the wood right here. And AI cannot really tell that this, which is wood, is a live tree or not, because it cannot understand something that is possible and impossible the way humans see it. And we know that wood comes from a tree, but AI doesn't have the intelligence to understand that, and it has been taught that. It has been taught in the algorithm, it has learned with machine learning to say that wood is connected to tree. And if a tree is big and it's green, it's alive, but it doesn't really know that. So in other words, it is very, very simple the way it thinks, which again, it doesn't have a mind in its own, but it predicts what should match as a word, as a language, something that is found in our common language, which we have fed it with. And the better job we do with feeding good information that is true, the better it will learn and will grow. And we've seen that the ChatGPT 4.0 that my wife Calliope uses can give,
5.1.
or 5. Yes, is much, much better than the 3.0 from a year and a half ago. So there's a huge difference in how correct it can respond to your prompts. And so sometimes it's getting it really right when you wanted to summarize, for example, something, or help you with the draft of a letter of recommendation that we've used it for. Or I help with starting a synopsis of my own ideas, putting them together. It can get it very, it can do very well job with that. But usually it can give you really erroneous information. And so we have to be the gatekeepers and the safeguards as human beings who know the difference between truth and false, and what appears to be true and what is really true.
But this is only temporary. This is only for a month or so, because next month, the assumptions that it will do, he had a lot more algorithm put in it, and then we're gonna be on GPT-6.
Sure, but now this is growing and this is becoming better in in specific tasks. So that's what it's getting better at. Yeah.
Maybe Professor Janos, who knows more things about how technology works.
I will pose my questions.
Okay.
Give the opportunity to the other questions. Okay, please go ahead. I have a shorter question than the previous guy. And I wish we had a definition of spirituality, because for an agnostic, it would be easier to accept your speech if we were somehow interchange the middle brain emotional world in place of spirituality. So if I make any sense, I certainly will appreciate a definition of spirituality that may broaden the purpose of your speech by accepting that humanity will never be achieved from only a technical point of AI, and that's the neocortex. And in that sense, I need some help on what I'm saying. And one more thought, if I can remember it. The thought is that eventually the improvement of artificial intelligence, relatively speaking, will give more and more value into the emotional part of the brain, which can be spiritual, or it can be emotional, or it can be something different. So the way I perceive your speech, I'm in agreement with it, but I have problems if agnostic will accept it as easy. I like to think, I assume that there may be some books that replace spirituality with emotions. I like your opinion.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And actually, I will give you a very good real life example from a relatively new lab at MIT, from a scientist who, when she was studying biomedical engineering about 30 years ago, was an atheist, was a self-identified as an atheist. Her name is Rosalind Picard, huh? Yes, yeah, Rosalind Picard. And she said, there is no God. And that's why I want to do science. I want to be a great scientist because there is no God. Now, when she was studying, finishing her PhD, she uncovered, not discovered, right? So uncovered, meaning that she had an epiphany, and she realized that great science can be even better if there is God, or if we accept that there is God. And now she has this lab at MIT, which is amazing, called MIT Affective Computing, which looks into AI emotions that can be taught or mimicked at least, and how we can teach them empathy, which is very, very interesting. I think to your point that it is not looking into any kind of spirituality there, but is looking into how machines and robots, anthropomorphic robots like Sophia is an example of that, that it can appear to be empathizing with you, especially if you look sad. It can detect from your pupil dilation into your any kind of perspiration, change in your temperature or heart rate. It can detect all of that, and it can say, oh, why are you sad today? I see that you are not as you normally look like. You seem that you're not smiling today. So it can mimic empathy, and is looking into that, for example. And then we have some data that we use in human flourishing that we call them SNR. That's how we characterize. So spiritual people who are spiritual but not religious, which is a very interesting category where more and more people across the United States, about 72%, indicate that they are religious. And there is a big percentage of those who are not religious who indicate I'm spiritual, even though I'm not religious, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered the question a little bit.
Yeah.
No.
I'm just wondering why we need AI. You're trying to
Good question.
replace humanity, I think, here.
Yeah.
Aren't you? I mean, we use 10% of our brain power right now. Humans do, correct? The other 90% is, I don't know what, we don't use it. So are we trying to replace it with a robot that you could just program? If we want robots, just put a computer and have them vacuum the floor or something. You know, you don't, or, you know, but who goes up to the moon? You know, people.
Yeah.
Who has all these thoughts are people. So why are we trying to replace people with these AI?
That's a very good question that goes really to the heart of the matter, that is that humans as humans, we have the tendency, especially when we see any kind of robot, not those advanced robots, anthropomorphic robots, looking like people, walking like people, like Sophia, for example, but even any kind of robot, we have the tendency to want to anthropomorphize them, to say, oh, it looks so much like a human being, it walks like a human being, it can do something like a human being. So we feel almost that there might be something human there. So I think that might be exciting to a degree, and that's why the same with, do you know why we, meaning Americans, went to the moon in 1969? Because there was something called Sputnik in 1957. So because there was a race to the moon, we managed to go to the moon. And of course, the vision from John Kennedy. But in a similar way, there is a race to get the best technology and the best AI and the best robot that can do the best things. So sometimes there is this race, and no one stops to ask, as you very well said, and I alluded to earlier, why should we just because we can? Why should we be doing that? So that's a wonderful question, mostly rhetorical for most people, but I think it is worth revisiting frequently and much. Yes, so thank you very much.
My understanding is that the AI or the algorithms are as good as the input by computer professionals.
Yes.
So a computer professional is educated about bioethics, humanities, and understand those meanings, I think can really do a good job and actually cover those aspects that we just presented. I mean, I'm sure it needs a lot of effort to do a perfect job, and it might take time, but I think it can be done, and people should be, those computer professionals, more well-rounded, besides understanding computer science, learning more about bioethics, humanities, and so on.
Yes. No, that's I agree with the way you present it, and that's something that I'm happy that you repeat that and mention the most important notion that an AI algorithm is as good as what we humans put into that, feed into it. And some for the people who are really afraid of what AI might become, it is usually the same with what we might fear of a really bad person who means not well, who means, ill towards us, who might be in the south side of Chicago right now with the intent who, wants to do something, harm someone else. So I think that it is really the same as someone who can do really great things, and we can trust that person and we want that person to do good things. But at the same time, we can have someone who is ready or intent to do something really bad as a human being. So because it is our own creation in our image and likeness again, we can have both, sadly, and it is probably very hard to eliminate all the bad because it comes from us humans.
Or you may enhance it.
I know.
Or we may enhance it and make it even worse. Yes.
No, you said no second questions, but if I can add a little bit to this, when I was working for a company, they used to, and I was in charge of research, they used to tell us, we don't need small things, we need platforms of new things like the internet, like the cell phone. I personally think this is really a new platform that is going to catapult the world. It's going to take a lot of effort, and things at some point they're going to accelerate, but they need input from a lot of different aspects of life.
Absolutely. And I agree. And although I talked a lot about Harvard and MIT and U Chicago, Rutgers people are also great people, right? So the people who went to Rutgers too in New Jersey. So I wanted to highlight that because I remember that you are from Rutgers. So
Other questions? Christos.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
thank you.
I felt that the STEM, AI and STEM was not quite mentioned. The AI is not robots and everything.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because it allows us to do experiments that we cannot do otherwise, get new knowledge that can help people that would not have been possible, at least for the next several years. So that's item one. Item two, regarding what you mentioned about the Agnes who became a Christian or something.
An atheist scientist, yes.
I'm wondering if you had the chance to see The Language of God, the book by the director of NIH, the ex-director.
Collins.
Yes.
Francis Collins.
He has 4 books, but the first one is The Language of God, because he was an atheist and then he became a Christian.
That's a wonderful question. Yes. And thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, I wish I could have shared much more. And actually, Dr. Janos very correctly told me I showed him what I was intending to show you, and I would have shared a lot from stem cell research and medicine and all of that. But very correctly he said that's going to be too much information, and maybe we won't have enough time to just explain some of the basics. So I actually reduced the slides that I had to bring this to you. But there, we could have talked so much about what happens there, which is a big part of what we study in bioethics, by the way. So I have many students who are geneticists and work in genomics as well. So, and we do stem cell research for cures. And this has another host of bioethical concerns and questions. But yes, we have so much that can help. So we have, just to give an example, from pharmaceuticals, we have AI looking into trillions of combinations from existing drugs that are FDA approved drugs out in the market to find cures for rare diseases that it would, and what AI can do in hours would have taken a group of 1,000 scientists working 24/7 round the clock for 3 years. Which means that we don't do that for some rare diseases, but AI can actually find new drugs, combinations from existing drugs.
Yeah, but I think they can do it because you don't have one individual or a team of individuals to do it. I mean, they have machines. In these data centers, they have so many computers and they consume so much power.
Yeah.
In order to go to details and depth and find patterns that for a person or two persons, they are dwarfing them. So this is the advantage of the machines. And that would be the positive part of the AI.
Yes.
But on the other hand, since you mentioned, a big part of my skepticism is the people who they try to develop the AI, most of them, they're interested for the money.
Yes.
They are the business people. They spend there how the stock market goes and so on, because they want to make money. They don't care about Bioethics, Eudaemonia, or the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of them, as you indicate, he actually said it.
Yeah, the chief of AI for Meta.
Yeah.
I don't care about LLMs anymore.
And Peter also said that it's not our business to find out if the people they use Facebook, they lie and they give false information and so on and so on. They are the ones who generated all this big mess, but they don't want to take any responsibility for that. And I think if bad information goes to the algorithms, then you can have a Babylon. We will not be able to communicate with each other because you will not know what is true and what is false. Because you get it from all the sides, and it depends on the intention of the programmer, what he wants to communicate.
Yeah.
And we have seen already that there is a big mess already with miscommunication and so much
misinformation.
Yeah, misinformation is floating around.
Yes.
We can see it here in the political life of the United States. I mean, we start now not to be able to communicate with each other. The one side says this, the other side says that, with some egregious things and so on and so on. But that is from the information that they get, and the algorithms of Facebook, they encourage the misinformation because these people, they give the misinformation, they stick more together. They want to make money out of advertising. So it's attractive to the advertisers to go to the people to give the advertising where most of the people they can say it because they make money from that. They don't care if what they talk and what they try to promote and so on is false or whatever. So I see the good part, the scientists, they may use AI to solve real problems that the computational capability of the computer provides in medicine, biology, mathematics, physics, and so on and so on. But I'm not sure that the businessmen, they are very much interested so much about it. They just want to make money. So that's one aspect of my skepticism about it.
We should remain optimistic.
Yeah.
We should remain optimistic, I think. This is a hard field and we should...
Well, there are the good aspects of it in solving the problems that Professor Psimopoulos mentioned in biology and medicine, etc.
Medicine is one of the big
and so on and so on. And for example, as the computational power increases, the problems that we can solve with numerical solvers and so on and so on is tremendous. So that's an extension to it if you go to the good direction. But if you go it just to make money, for example, I was reading 2 days ago in one of the publications of MIT the following. There is a business out there that promotes bots in order to be social companions to other people. And in one case, specific now that goes to the courts, is that a family that had a kid that had psychological problems, suicidal thoughts, etc., etc. So they went to this company in order to give to the kid something as a companion, and they gave him a chatbot, so the kid was talking to the computer continuously, back and forth, etc., etc. And the kid actually needed humans instead of a computer, but they went to the computer. So the kid asked that he has suicidal thoughts, so asked the bot to tell him what to do. I told him to have social relations, etc., etc., but told him
not to talk to his mother. For whatever reason, not to talk to his mother. And finally, the kid decided to make his mind to commit suicide and asked the bot what is the best way to hang itself. And the bot helped him to find out the best way to hang to hang himself.
Yes.
And the kid actually followed the advice and hacked himself. And the case now is in the courts. So
And
those who
might go
develop
to
the
the
tool,
Supreme Court.
okay.
The name of the 14-year-old is Sejal Sewell.
Okay, good. You know the story. Yeah. So these people that are interested, you can see every day when you pick up the phone to talk in any utility, and you bring with the machines, and they they beat you to death, not to go to a person, although they don't understand what you tell them. And you say, let me speak to a person. And they repeat the same thing and the same thing. Because these people, they want to make money by cutting labor, and they don't care if the service is good or bad. They say that we have a customer service.
At least in those cases, because it's so bad, you know it's not a person, because it's getting it wrong most of the time. In the case of this very tragic situation that sadly we have a couple more cases where teenagers decided with the help of a character, a bot that they created. So that was the character.ai creation, which is now, because of a lawsuit to the company, it is probably going to reach all the way, the first case that will reach to the Supreme Court. They really felt that it was a human there. So that was the most difficult to swallow, and to realize that, this was really what we call in bioethics a very maleficent kind of technology or system or algorithm that thought that was offering a solution for extreme suffering that the teenager felt, was sharing, that I can't live my life anymore. It has become unlivable and I am suffering so much. And because it was mimicking, as we said earlier, that emotion that needed needed a solution. Yes, needed a solution to the suffering. So it said, what is a solution to stop suffering? To stop the cause of suffering, meaning stop living, stop breathing. So that was the prediction of something that is associated with eliminating suffering. Imagine that. So no logic, right? It was not a human kind of empathy, but it was mimicking something that thought that would provide a good solution to a specific need and demand to show that it was helping.
But I don't know if the business people are interested in that.
They claim that that was something that they hadn't purposefully embedded in that algorithm, and they didn't know how to avoid having something like that.
But and this exactly gives the point how it can become super smart when what they do is driven by what the people they tell them. How they become smarter because they talk about super intelligence, robots and bots, etc., etc.
And we're about 20 years away from AGI and or super intelligence. So AGI is artificial general intelligence, meaning that this AI, which is again, is not there yet, even with Sophia, that robot, it is not equivalent to our own intelligence as human intelligence again. And then beyond that would be this super intelligence, where it is much, much really intelligent, real intelligence, than human intelligence. So the estimates are that we're about 15 to 20 years or more away from something like that. So we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the generative AI primarily, and applications that we have.
And this creates exactly what Vicky said. What is the purpose of this?
I know what's the purpose. I know what's the purpose. I know that's my wife, but I know what's the purpose is money. Okay, let's stay there because you opened up Pandora's box in there, and I want to get to Eudaemonia for a second. I'm just going to time up. Okay, so unless there is a money to be gained, the monetary thing at the end of any expansion in technology, there will be no expansion. Unless there is more money at the end, unless there's that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, there's no point of chasing the rainbow. We will not enjoy the beautiful colors of the rainbow. We have to go through all this to get to the pot of gold. So the pot of gold tells us that we have to go through these steps. And you don't have to agree with me, but that's what is the motivator. This is what gets Gemini, GPT, and everything else. General Motors, to have some motorized electronic inputs into the cars, etc., etc. What I want to know is, where do you put eudaemonia in this? Here is the machine. We should agree that the machines, the robotics, are created for the money. But what does it matter? We're looking for replacing the mother, or the kid that hung himself asked, how do I hang myself? Where the kid of the 1800s would have gotten his father's rope and hung himself because he didn't go to ask his mother, or whatever other reason. Or the kid, the comparable kid that has psychological dissatisfactions, goes now to Ace, a hardware store, and gets a beautiful rope that's all prepared and ready for various reasons, but it fits also the kid's neck in a nice, easy way, and the kid hangs himself. And we immediately will blame Ace hardware store, who we did not blame the guy back in the 1800s for giving him the rope. So where does eudaemonia come in? We're looking for eudaemonia to be something that I, using the GPT, will feel because it solved my problem, or because I will ask GPT, explain to me what Plato actually meant, or Jesus, how did he get? You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you.
And we already have a course at the University of Chicago on happiness, by the way, and eudaemonia.
So there's opportunity for more learning, but the quick answer is that AI should be a tool, like many of the other tools that we use, to help with our everyday life tasks, chores, and pursuits. And it shouldn't be anything more than that to replace something significantly human. And only when we have meaning and purpose in life from something that is really fulfilling and helps with our well-being in all the dimensions of physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and spiritual well-being, only if, and to the degree, to the extent possible, that AI or any kind of technology is a tool and helps a little bit with that, our own flourishing, not what AI will tell us is flourishing or eudaemonia, only then can we strive towards eudaemonia, our flourishing. And again, not as individuals. If we have an AI chatbot telling us that, oh, you have everything you want, I can give you everything you want to be happy. And if we're alone in a basement for all our lives, we're not going to be flourishing. We might think we're happy at the moment, and that tool will be maleficent, as we say. So it won't be a tool for a good reason for us. It will not help with a good life. So as long as it stays as a tool, and we see it that way, and it is not, we're not subordinate to technology, but actually it is based on some human values that we use, and it is never a means to an end, as I said earlier. So it is never an end in itself, that I want to have AI because with AI I'm a happy person, but rather AI as a tool can help in some cases make my life easier. For example, like I don't need to spend too much time with a task that is that is more superficial, and I can spend more time talking to my elderly grandmother or mother at the bedside at the end of her life, for example, and not having to do, 4 hours of expense reconciliation, for example, right? I can spend those hours with a human being.
Okay, I will take the 3 questions. And then we will close this up and we go to 5. Please,
I have a quick question. And my question is this. So I happened to walk into the library the other day. And, I found myself among a lot of books. So I opened one book, and the first thing that my physical reaction was Star Mystica, which is funny. So then I thought that this is the human knowledge. It's right here. So, and if there are 1,000 universities multiplied by 10 million books that each university has, so that's our human knowledge. And it's printed. It's even in it. On the other hand, I'm looking at myself and I said to myself, I'm really functionally illiterate. And I'll tell you why. So my Greek is not good. I am Greek, but I was born outside. I never truly learned. I know how to write, how to read, and all that stuff, but it's very poor. So, and what has happened 6 years ago is that my mother got sick. So I went to Thessaloniki. Here I am with my degrees and all that stuff. Okay. So I went to the hospital, and the hospital gave me 2 forms to fill out, and I couldn't. So, of course, I knew how to do it. So I opened my telephone. I went to the dictionary trying to figure out what it is. I called my friends who are more literate than me, and they said, no problem. In 2 minutes, I solved the problem. So I think this particular technology, it's not gonna, the way I see it, if the knowledge is out there, that's number one. Number two is that if you open any introductory book in social sciences, in philosophy, in sociology, psychology, and so on, and the preface to these books, it's 101 introduction. I'm not talking about anything out of, trying to create systems in my mind. No. And you read there what every subject, the questions that they ask is the questions that the subject matter wants to answer. And guess what? If you open a book, and I told this to my children, go and open the book in sociology, economics, political science, and so on, philosophy, linguistics, 30 years ago, and you see the preface, and you open the same books now, they try to answer the same questions. So now, this tool, where does it come in to enhance me? Like, I consider myself functionally illiterate in many things. Like, if Professor Christos here is going to ask me, what is the heaviest metal? I don't know. Or how am I going to relate this to what? I don't know. So if I'm going to find myself someplace, what am I going to do? So with all that knowledge. So now I think that this particular tool, any tools that men create is difficult machine, but how this particular tool with good intentions could help a person like me, to enhance my whatever I want to do. Understand, for example, Plato, or as whoever said that, or understand, I don't know, whatever I want to understand at this moment.
You're not going to understand Plato, you don't read Plato for the origin.
Yes. But you see, the problem is this, is that when I got married and we had children, okay, I was working, by 7 o'clock in the morning, I had to prepare my children with my wife. Then I drive and got stuck in traffic for an hour. I go to work, I work 9 hours, I came back home, am I gonna wash, do what? At 11 o'clock at night, κάθομαι στην πολυθρόνα λοιπόν και ανοίγω το πλάτωνα και διαβάζω 3 σελίδες for an hour. And then I fell asleep. The next day, the same thing. So this is what I'm talking about. So you have some basic knowledge of things, basic understanding. So where that thing is gonna improve me, I don't care if it's gonna improve some professor who sits in that cubicle and trying to figure out building systems and all that stuff. Me, I have 3 degrees. I don't, but I'm functional. You know what I'm saying? So what is that thing is going to help me?
Yeah, in general,
Yeah, for example, in your example with the hospital in Thessaloniki, you could have this AI algorithm and maybe some software that could have immediately translated the difficult terms into English in language that you would understand. And not only that, but it could have suggested the quickest way for you to fill out the paper, maybe without even having to do this by hand. It could have just sent an email to the people who are waiting the form already typed. So this could have been a good tool.
Are you emphasizing those practical applications in during whatever you're doing?
They should be emphasized, but also they should be measured holistically. So that's the point of AI for human flourishing. So we should determine, did it help today, in our everyday life, our work, in our relationship, did it help in some way, shape, or form? If the answer is yes, it reduced the time that I had to sit in traffic because it offered an alternative route that I would never have considered to come, let's say, from our house in South Loop here in less than 39 minutes, right? So I'm just saying, or it actually helped because I was able to digest something very difficult from Plato in the original ancient Greek, to digest it more easily. And I didn't even have to read that. I could do this while driving to the airport, for example. So if it helps in some way, make it still meaningful, something that we do in our life meaningful, or a personal interaction to be enhanced. For example, in medicine, a lot of the time, and maybe you've seen it, we have, for example, we go to our pediatrician for our two kids. We have Spiro, who is 12, and Erato, who is 10. And then the pediatrician has to turn her back to us and the kids and type in her computer as she's listening, oh, so did you have any symptoms with that? Or what happened, recently with nutritional habits? So instead of having to turn our back, which is not good medicine is to be looking at the eyes and attending to the patient or the person in front of you. Now this AI, I use it also, it's called Otter.ai. It is an AI assistant for taking minutes from meetings, right? Or summarizing specific information and transcribing. So if you have something like that as an AI tool, and the pediatrician doesn't have to be with her back turned for 15 minutes of our 1 hour session, then those 15 minutes, she can better attend to body language, to where our son was looking at while she was typing and asking something, right? So this is just an example of many, but this does promote human flourishing because it does give back meaningful minutes time from for the physician or from the physician to the patient, where the patient counts more as a person and not as a number, a statistic, or just the symptoms that they have. So it's the person that matters first and not the disease.
But also here, it helps the doctor, it does not replace him. Because many, they say that with AI, many doctors will replace, many engineers, many lawyers, etc., etc. So that's the good and the bad aspect. The second, η Ελένη που έχει την πρώτη φορά ρωτάει και μετά το Δημήτρη. And then I will close. Okay, I will take last.
I've been so upset with AI, it's even in my dreams. I have nightmares. And because it sounds, this is very informative, but what are we going to do about it? How can we control it? It's almost like it's out there, and it's how are we teaching our children? I mean, I'm a writer. I could ask AI to do my writing for me, but then I won't learn how to use different words. I like to play with the words. I like to try this and try that. I could feed it into the AI and it'll come out with, and I go onto the Facebook, and what I'm seeing in Facebook, it's like one story after another. Is that AI? Like you said, you can't understand it, but it can do help. There's help, but how you weigh it and how you're going to control it, because it's so scary. It came into my nightmare last night.
I'm sorry to hear that.
You were coming here. No, I didn't. That wasn't.
I can give you a very quick example, but I can also maybe be the bearer of bad news, or even worse news, that AI is here to stay based on what most people are saying or looking into what, kind of technologies we'll have in the future, right? So that's maybe the bad news, that we have to learn how to live with that. But as I said, we have to still determine what kind of human beings we have to be with this AI, and not the opposite, that what kind of human beings will just end up being helpless because of AI, right? But it is going to be here to stay. And an example is for kids, very simple, and then I'll tell you about writing. Actually, let me start with the writing. It is okay to have a second draft, to start with your own draft as a writer, or when you have ideas, to put them on paper, and ideally actual paper to write something, because that's a better way you can remember, and you can do better synapses in the brain, as the neuroscientist will tell you. But it's okay to have AI, for example, try to do a second, or go from a second to a third draft and offer some insight, meaning not its own insight, human insight, but maybe, that's another combination of words in a syntactical sequence that I hadn't thought of. And Calliope does that sometimes. And in the beginning, I was hesitant, but said, if it helps you a little bit, go from second to third, that's fine. But not start with it. This is very important. But also with the kids. Our daughter, Rato, just went on a 3-day camping trip out in the woods. It's called outdoor education, back in Massachusetts. And she usually will, they have an iPad. She's 10, she's 5th grade. And she spends quite a bit of time, not necessarily interacting with an AI, but she might use, some apps and Google. But when she came back from the 3-day trip, which she hadn't done before, she was talking to me for 1 hour straight without even checking or worrying about her iPad or iPhone, because she was so excited by nature, and they learn how to start a fire. So I think we have to start going back to some of those skills, life skills, to both teach our children, but also enjoy ourselves. Especially sometimes just looking out to the horizon. This is something that when you're looking at the screen, and we have neuroscientists assess what happens in our brain when we keep looking into a screen and we don't have any depth in our gaze during the day, let alone looking at the sky and looking up. As an anthropos, etymologically means looking up, anothrosko. We're not anthropos if we're just down throsko, right? If we're looking down or inside the screen.
Okay, that's what, the last question.
Okay.
We can talk about it.
Okay, I was just thinking, the kids, think of calculators. The kids now, all of them in grade school use calculators. Very few of them can multiply, divide by the time they get to high school. They're not using their brains. They're not use it or lose it, right? And they're not using their brains. So if they've got somebody to do something for them, which AI will do everything, they're just going to play. Are we just going to become just ourselves robots with all these other machines just taking over what we're supposed to do? And we're just going to ask them, and they're going to tell us, and we're going to say, okay, that's fine. That's good. Let's go on to the next thing. We'll go out and play. Now, I mean, it's so easy to get in that kind of a rut for all humanity. It's I don't know if this is really what we should all be doing. We're trying to give these robots a new spirit, and they don't. They're what we put into them.
Yes, exactly. So we had a very famous, at least as a social scientist, professor at MIT, not an engineer herself, but a sociologist and anthropologist. Her name is Susan Terkel. And she was giving us the example of what is really unique in humans, one of the many things at least, that the AI can never achieve, can never do. First, it cannot understand the notion of what it means to pray. which is something very human, right? And second, it can never pray. It can never pray to another being in the way that we pray in God, those who believe in God and Jesus Christ. And this is something that will never change for AI. So this can give us some optimism, some solace that, yeah, we can use it, but it's never going to really replace something so inherent about our humanness and humanity. And the other element is it can never have human dignity. So in other words, it doesn't have moral worth, as we say in bioethics, in the same way that an embryo has moral worth because it is a human living thing, even as an embryo.
It's a he, right?
Yeah, and it will never have a soul because you cannot pray only with the mind. You pray with your soul. And where is the soul? We cannot see it biologically, even if we dissect perfectly our human body. But we know it is there.
Okay, thank you very much. You have something very, very brief?
Yeah, real quick. I think Europe is making the standards for human flourishing and the US is not. We're the wild, wild west of AI. And your office is trying to kind of help and rope that in a little bit, but I think it's an overarching thing that the Europeans are more concerned about humanity than the United States. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, I promised to Stephanos, who is following the lecture from Boston, to ask 2 questions that he asked. So please give me the time. The first one that he has is, would it be possible for AI to copy the brain of a person, and then after the person dies, to give him immortality by putting this into a robot that is going to behave like the person that died?
Well, there are some great movies about that, and I watched some of them. I highly recommend that you do. It's a good thought experiment. But there is something in reality. It just happened. We had the first ever posthumous human being posthumously through AI. So an image of the person, it's an AI generated image, speaking in the trial of the person who murdered that victim, right? So we have a real life example of something similar, which is not exactly that, but it happened in a US court for the first time. So we had testimony from an AI generated image that sounded and spoke and, appeared like the person who was the victim of a road rage incident. You can look it up, by the way. And I had it in some of my slides that were just too many to show. But that's just one thing. Another thing is we have AI, which I think is quite kind of interesting because I think it is bioethically okay, I would say. It is sound. We have a way to collect, either from memories or from recordings, all of that, and embed them into an AI software that will be as if, let's say, our late grandmother, if we can collect all of that, or a mother or a parent or someone that we love who passed away, we can have them reappear in a sense through an AI, talking to us and using the actual words that they had said to us, their voice, right? So this is something that is being done, which I think it connects a little bit to that, about that. We do have neural networks and neuron synapses and connections that can connect us, and this is studied under transhumanism, where we can think of an action and AI can actually do it for us. So we can have this neural network. So that's something similar, but it is not beyond that currently. But I think there are movies where producers and directors have actually put that in a script, in a scenario, and then it's actually kind of interesting to see that, how this would look like. Yeah.
And the second question is directed to your specialty as bioethicist. He says that there are drugs which they are new.
Yeah.
And actually not drugs yet because they have not been approved, but they are in the test phase.
In clinical trials.
Yeah, in clinical trials. And for these drugs, you have people who they take the drug, but they don't know in the trial, and people they get a placebo, and then at the end they compare and decide about the efficacy of the drug. And then his question is that if there are people who they are terminally ill, they are going to die anyway, can they ask that if there is an experimental drug, that definitely not to put them on the placebo side, but on the side of the persons that they will take it. And if the drug does not work, he may die. But he's going to die anyway. So bioethics, do they allow a person to ask something like that?
The secular response to that, which is mostly what we have in our bioethics as we study it at Harvard Medical School, which is more a secular. So we're not asking theological questions that much, which I'm trying to remedy, right? But usually in a secular setting, if it is legally okay, meaning if there is informed consent, and we have a lot of legal matters that influence how we do bioethics, especially in hospital and research settings. So if it is legal, meaning that there is an informed consent, someone understands really what it is that they will do, understands the risk, and understands that they can choose not to continue or discontinue, as we say, then usually it is okay, it is allowable, as we say. Now, of course, if it is something that someone might be ill-advised to do by other people who advise him or her, go do that, that might be questionable, not very bioethically appropriate, because it has to do with the competence, mental and intellectual competence or capacity of the individual patient or participant. And that's the same in cases where we have a life or death situation in clinical settings, where we want to continue or discontinue treatment. We have to make sure that there is what is called a healthcare proxy who will help advise what the person should do or would have wanted to do. And that's a whole other, situation. We have ethics committees, having the legal counsel who is trained in bioethics, the attending physician, the chaplain or the priest, and they all try to deliberate, because bioethics is all about the gray areas, the difficult questions in medicine and healthcare about human lives that are not just a yes or no, or there is usually hardly ever a one right course of action. There are many difficult, less than ideal courses of action. So in bioethics, we will try to deliberate, and if it's something easy that is legal and that seems to be okay, then we can say they can proceed as long as they know what they're getting into, literally. If not, then we have to try to deliberate and inquire, asking different questions, and then we can determine if it is. And I've been on one of the Harvard affiliated hospitals, Harvard Medical School affiliated hospitals ethics committees, where we were trying to help the patients and their families seek the best course of action, that it is best uniquely for them, not what the clinical teams just want. And we believe that we want the best for them, but it is really what is best for them on a case-by-case basis. And sometimes there is disagreement within the family of the patient's family, the loved ones. And we're talking about stage 4 cancer and other issues like that. So,
very good. Thank you very much.
So do you go into JPT and ask them when you come to this point?
No, we don't use ChatGPT.
The next lecture.